The National Broadcasting Company takes pleasure in presenting a conversation with the most distinguished composer of music, Igor Stravinsky. With Maestro Stravinsky in his house in Hollywood is his protégé, the American conductor, Robert Kraft.
Bob, are you there?
Yes.
Come in. Sit down. I want to show you something. Will you play these two last measures? Play these three parts. I play the three lower parts of the horns. No, it was not good. Once more. So upbeat. Two. No, up. Two. That's just the end. Two trumpets and horns. I want to see with you the connection between this part and the next, which is a pas de quatre, and 30 seconds. Here are the intervals. We have to touch the music, not only to hear it, because touching it, we feel the vibration of the music. It's a very important thing when you think about the Beethoven's case. You remember when Beethoven was absolutely deaf? He took a stick in his mouth, like this pencil, and he played music, touching the stand to have the vibrations, because he needed to enjoy the vibrations. Otherwise, the music was an abstract matter for him. And this is what he didn't want.
And do your ideas always occur to you at the piano?
Mostly on the piano. You know, mostly when I touch the instrument, when I am looking for some distance of my fingers, which correspond to intervals, and that these intervals are really musical ideas.
Well, then there's chance involved.
Of course, sometimes chance, and sometimes by will. And we have not to despise the will. The will is a very important thing. I also think about Beethoven and his sketches, which today everybody knows. What he did by will. It's also, an element of creation. Yeah, I think we have enough of all this. And you are conducting a gun in 2 days, and we have to see some sketches in the score of Agonization that's in the other room. Let's go there.
Born of aristocratic Russian parents, Stravinsky soon moved to Western Europe, where he lived for 30 years. In 1945, he became a U.S. citizen. For half a century, Stravinsky's musical explorations have dominated modern music. His nearly 100 works, Ballets, symphonies, religious music, even jazz have often outraged audiences at first hearing. Undaunted, Stravinsky has continued a rigorous schedule of daily composition. His wife says, "In this house there are no holidays, always work."
The 5/8 are composed here, 2 and 3 and 3 and 2. I want to show you it in the big score. Open me, please, the conductor score.
Here it is.
You will see. The flutes, for example, they play as you will conduct, 2 and 3.
2 and 3.
3 and 2. And the trumpets are just the contrary. 2, 3. 3, 2, and so on. But don't pay attention to it. That's the flute which counts here. And you see, it's much more clear in my sketches, in my composer score.
And your imagination is absolutely clear when you play the piano, the sonority that you will hear in the orchestra.
I got with the practice of things the habit to hear as I want.
Yes.
The same note I hear at trumpet as I hear at violin. You know, it depends on my imagination.
It's difficult to talk about the imagination, but one can talk about craftsmanship. Perhaps you could say something about craftsmanship.
Yeah, craftsmanship reminds me a very important word, homo faber, as opposed to homo sapiens. Homo faber, the man who makes things. And the things to be made, we must invent them.
I would like to know if your first musical experiences, you were conscious that you had an inventor's attitude towards them.
I remember that I played the scale on the piano. And playing the scale on the piano, I thought, after all, who invented the scale? Somebody invented the scale. If somebody invented the scale, I can change something in the scale and invent something else in the scale. And I invented, I remember, say C, D, E, no F. I jumped to G. And an F came after the last B. You see, and somebody, an old uncle who was came beside me on the piano, he asked me, "What are you playing? You start so decently with C, D, E, and afterwards you jump." I said, "My dear uncle, that's my invention. Let me alone."
How old were you then?
Oh, I was 8 years old.
And you had piano lessons?
Oh, yeah, I had piano lessons from 7. The regular piano lessons, I took it at 9. And it was very dull that I had to do it. And the exercises were dull, and everything seemed to me too large, too big. I remember that was just the first years of my musical life. Later, at 14 years, I took lessons. It was a lady who was maybe 19 years old, and of course, for me, that was an old maid. That I was. Of course, I was in love with this old maid, and I was desperate at love with this old maid, and I didn't know how to hide it from my mother, because the mother was always a little bit severe for these things. And I remember in one conversation when we were together at table, my father, my mother, this old maid of 19 years, and myself. And my mother said to her, to the old maid, I know Igor is in love with you, and so what? And she was very offended. There are my souvenirs of my piano career, because I always was pianist. I liked very much the piano.
During this time, did you study composition at all?
Not quite. I had teachers before, my dear old teacher and old friend Rimsky-Korsakov. I had a teacher, his pupil, the pupil of Rimsky-Korsakov, was always very dull. Very dull. Harmony and counterpoint. It was very, very dull. But it was 2 or 3 years. And afterwards I told, when I started my lessons with Rimsky-Korsakov, he asked, how are you advancing in harmony and in counterpoint? Very badly, Nikolai Andreevich. Very badly, because I must confess, it's very dull. It's also right, and you will do it yourself, but you have to do it. And I said that harmony doesn't interest me at all, you know, but counterpoint, very much. And he was a teacher who gave the pupil the utmost of himself, of his own knowledge. He acquired this knowledge by, by his own practice. He was not taught about music. He was a natural musician with a very fine ear and very fine memory, as you. But you are not a composer. He was a composer.
Did he set you examples? Did he give you forms to compose?
No, he said, don't go to the conservatory. It's not for you. I was only very glad, because I wanted him to teach me, not conservatory university.
You composed under Rimsky-Korsakov's aegis about 4 or 5 works, and each one goes very, very fast and towards your own personality and your own style. And I think probably the most remarkable of those is the Fireworks.
Yeah, it was performed in St. Petersburg, and it was very well performed. This huge orchestra, 6 horns and so on, very effectful. And Diaghilev was there, and he was very impressed. And immediately afterwards, he wants to ask me something. He was very, of course, very interested to do something for Diaghilev. And he asked me just to make some instrumentation of Chopin.
Yes. What sort of an impression did Diaghilev make on you that first time when you saw him? A dilettante, or what, did he really know what he wanted?
It was a kind of Oscar Wilde. Oh, it was very elegant, very chic, and very distant. It was a dandy, very distant, and very smiling and protecting. This style. But at the same time, he knew very well what he had in mind, and he was rather elogious, you know, and for somebody who was just 24 years old or 25 years old, was very flattering, because Diaghilev was a very well-known person at this moment, and he had his scandals with the imperial opera and imperial director of the opera and so on, because of Nijinsky and all this. It was a very interesting period, I must say, and I was flattered and very happy to do it.
How did it come about that after that, then, that you wrote The Firebird for him?
Because after this season, this was the season of spring in Paris, spring 1909. And immediately when he came back, he wanted to see me, and to make the season 1910. And for 1910, he commissioned me the Firebird.
Petrushka followed the Firebird, and the Sacre du Printemps, the Rite of Spring, followed Petrushka. And they were probably the most notorious musical events of the early part of the century. And I'm sure Diaghilev was pleased, especially with the publicity about the scandal of the Rite of Spring.
Yeah, he was very pleased indeed. But he was not so much pleased by something that happened a year later. It was the same Sacre du Printemps at the concert in Paris also. Monteux conducted it. It was such a triumph. You cannot imagine. The public took me, raised me on the arms and went in the street, and I saw a mass of police protecting me. It was really a very big triumph, this moment. And Diaghilev was furious because the triumph was not in his ballet, but in an organization. And it was a pure jealousy. And so I tried to smooth the whole thing by telling him that I will give him for the next season my new opera, the Rossignol. And so it was in 14. And he performed the Rossignol. We went to London. We performed it in London. I came back to Switzerland, and little by little we formed a kind of group of painters around us, and a group of friends like Cocteau. Who else? It was Picasso, of course.
He did this portrait of you at that time.
Yeah, exactly. Now, a little bit later.
1917.
yeah.
After the First World War, your interest in folklore declined, and you showed a new interest in the forms of sonata, of fugue, of canon, of the 18th century especially, but also of earlier centuries.
Of course. I must say that I was not the only one. It was so many composers that did the same. In the old time, in our time, for example, Schoenberg did the same with his symphonic music, and Webern also. So I went on, and I composed something which has a much more importance than the people think about it. That's Apollo, Musicette. Apollo is composed, as everybody knows, for a string orchestra, very classical dance form, suite of dances. And I think always about Apollo as a beginning of something new in my music. Something new, that the technique was new. The technique was new. I didn't invent special forms. I followed the forms of all the composers, as Beethoven followed the forms of his predecessors.
But you've been working in this direction ever since. But today, and more recently, there is a new principle has come into your use of these forms. And would you care to say something about that? It seems to me that it's much more concentrated, and it has a different dimension in harmony. People are baffled by it, who are used to hearing just chords and with which they're familiar.
Yeah, it is because my music of today is so much based on the new musical technology. We use the technology as a material for our musical art, as the poets use, say, words for their art. James Joyce did it, yes, and I do it in my way. I'm sure that I read somewhere in in the Crow Dictionary, I think. They compared my music with the poetry and with the writing of James Joyce. And in this sense, it's true. It's, because it has another meaning that just, what should I say, the sentimental meaning.
Yes.
Ask me another question now.
Do these same principles of form continue to guide your more recent music? For example, the piece you wrote for Dylan Thomas.
The piece I composed for Dylan Thomas was not intended first when I thought about Dylan Thomas. I wanted to compose with him an opera. And I waited him here, where we had to sketch this libretto for this opera. And he was in New York, I waited him here. And I received a telegram that he was dead in New York. So, no more opera. It was only the regret of knowing somebody which was a wonderful poet. And I always have his portrait with me, because I loved him very much. And so I composed a piece of music in his memory. I was very sad, and I don't know if the music translated this sadness. But what I know, that I composed this music in a certain style. And this style was very close to the principles which guide me today. And these principles are based on a certain discipline. The discipline of, as we hear very often today, is the word raw, serial music, and so on. And it was naturally a quite different approach with this principle of series as what I did before. And the people thought that it was very dissonant.
Why is it that every new work of yours arouses a certain protest from the public?
It's very simple. The answer is very simple. Each time I have new problems, and these new problems require new approach on my part. And the public has some habits already, has some familiarities with my old works, and they don't know if it is just a bad work of mine or a new approach. The idea of new approach, of a new problem doesn't come to their mind.
So you're ahead of the public.
It's inevitably. I am not guilty.
Yes. And what about the performances of your new works? You yourself very often like to conduct them.
I am conducting it for different reasons. First of all, I am myself a son of a big interpreter. My father was a very big and very famous artist in his time, as Chalapin was afterwards, after him. And he has a very strong dramatic talent. And this talent, I feel it in myself.
Yes.
It's nothing doing with the music, but something to doing with the performance. Yes. And I know, and I have practiced enough to convince public when the regular conductor cannot do it. And very often the conductor is furious that I take, the baton, or without even baton. I conduct my works. They consider it as a competition. Yes. What should I do? And the other reason is that that's earning. as a very serious earning, much more serious than my own music.
Yes, you mean you earn much more as a conductor
More,
than
of
as
course,
a composer.
everybody. What earns Chopin and what earns Rubinstein with Chopin? That's, Rubinstein is my friend, and my good friend is not to speak badly about him, but it is just a fact.
Yes.
And so I continue to conduct till my very old age, if I live more, as I feel strong enough to do it, and I enjoy to do it, because I can give the public much more than the other people who speaks after me.
You feel then that all composers should be performers. They should have some contact with
Absolutely pertinent question. I find that all composers must conduct. And they must conduct not only for the public, but for themselves, to know how to write music. When you know how to conduct, you will better write music.
There are many definitions of music. Do you happen to have a special one of your own?
My definition is always the same. Music is an organization of tones, an act of human mind. And at that propos, I remember a phrase of the great philosopher Schopenhauer, who spoke in the same terms about music. I put even down his phrase. And the musical tones inhabit and form a universe of their own, in which the human mind has created the materials and reduced them to order. That's a very remarkable thing.
The National Broadcasting Company filmed this conversation with Igor Stravinsky on the eve of his 75th birthday.